misfortunes and inconveniences had recently arrayed itself in Levin's path, and even without the added problem of possibly being killed, it was shaping up to be a trying week. For one thing, his two favor-asking neighbors, between whom his tiny apartment was pincered, had both, the week before, unleashed masterpieces of favor-asking on him. First, Mrs. Cohen, the elderly widow upstairs, had asked him to move one of her dense bureaus, causing him to tweak his back in what he feared was a complicated way. He was, in general, happy to assist Mrs. Cohen. He would even, until his busyness in recent months had made it impossible, sit with her and take in her widowly anecdotes with sympathy, but not to the extent of a back-tweaking. Next, he had fallen prey to some flirting by the exerciser, the young woman whom he only ever encountered on her way back from exercising, and agreed to watch her cat while she left town. It wasn't long before he discovered that the cat, though adorable, tended to vomit. And then, just a few days ago, had come the return of the wailer, a street person who screamed loudly outside Levin's window at unpredictable times. Her absence had evidently been only a sabbatical, during which she had learned additional wailing techniques, including a kind of vibrato. And in the midst of all these small things was, of course, the huge thing: Mr. Adderley's retirement, the opening of his position, and the necessity, the absolute necessity, that Levin ascend to it. Levin had waited 19 years for this epical moment. No, not 19. His whole life, really, all 49 years had been leading to it. He felt the anticipation of those years, all that recorded hope, not as the preparation for a pleasurable release, but as an intolerable burden of anxiety. As though each of those 49 years, with all their fevered imaginings of future joys, were stacked on top of his freshly tweaked back. And now, a death threat. Levin pulled the to-do list toward him, and with a grimace of defeat, added death threat to the already onerous accumulation of tasks. How many impingements on his time could he expect from a death threat? How many impositions would be added to the slew he already faced? A trip to the police? Would he have to look constantly over his shoulder to see who was coming? Dart unpredictably into alleyways to avoid possible killers? He let out a bitter sigh. He wasn't prepared for darting, not with his back in the shape it was in. If only the death threat could be put off until June, how much easier it would be. In June, he could approach a death threat fresh-faced. In June, he could give a death threat the care and attention it required. He would be happy to crane his neck around corners in June, and his back might even be in shape for darting. The threatener himself might well favor rescheduling if it could only be explained to him. How vexing. Levin buried his face in his hands, for it was clear, no matter how much he might wish to deny it, that the threat and all its concomitant distractions posed a serious risk to the promotion, which, though it was practically his already, and in fact many of his colleagues had already bestowed their congratulatory glances on him, still required certain small pro forma tasks to be fully secured. One was the presentation, which Meldon had requested from all candidates. A second was to come up with box questions with which to cultivate Meldon's good mood. Meldon was a woodworking enthusiast who specialized in the construction of small wooden boxes, a topic that set his normally sedate nature ablaze with passion, and it was best to approach him with some box questions prepared. But now, would Levin even have time for box questions, let alone the presentation? Still, he reassured himself, the promotion was his, even if he had to be hasty about things, even if he arrived with no box questions at all. It was true that Flemingson was making a run for it. Flemingson, a tall, gangly whistler whose whistling manner concealed a stunning propensity for wiles, had wheedled his way into contention with his sycophancy and his knick-knack collection. It was part of his wiles, the collection, a constantly metastasizing cluster of porcelain animal figurines that he arranged on his desk into silly scenes that didn't make sense even on their own terms. A donkey on trial before a jury of pigeons, an elephant campaigning in front of a crowd of penguin voters. If Levin were to stoop to such tactics, an impossibility, for he looked upon them with searing contempt, he would certainly have